Out of all the places the military can send you for a few years, the islands of Hawaii are hardly the least desirable, unless you just hate the sun, beautiful sandy beaches, and rainbows. Even if you have the absolute worst job, anyone who spent their years serving on a base like 29 Palms, Minot, Polk, Drum, and so on, they're gonna roll their eyes if they hear you complain about anything. Oh yeah, Hawaii must have been real tough, sure. Granted, I will always say that the jungles I had to spend days or even weeks at a time in during my field ops were downright awful. They are hot, wet, and an absolute death trap in the middle of the night. Hawaii is beautiful if you're standing on a beach, but we spent half our time crawling onto the beaches at 3 a.m. after finning several hundred meters through the water in full gear. Wet, sandy camis chafe your inner thighs real bad, and a waterlogged rucksack weighs a hell of a lot more, not to mention having to clean all that rust and mud constantly out of your rifles. We envy the guys who spent their time working in air-conditioned offices and said they loved going to the beach on the weekends. My recon platoon was honestly kind of sick of it by the time our training was over. Speaking of doing all this training at night, it's really no secret that nighttime is when the weird stuff starts happening. Hawaii, especially the island of Oahu, has long been a major hub for American military bases. As such, all manner of service personnel, Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, are always awake around the clock, whether in field training out in remote areas or sitting night watch in completely empty buildings. So, who better to be the witness to strange and terrifying things that go bump in the night when everyone else is asleep? Hawaii is often regarded as a dream vacation spot, but it is first and foremost an island with a bloody military history and no shortage of paranormal activity. Before it was occupied by the US military, the local natives were warring with each other, practicing their own rituals, dark magic, and supernatural whatnot. The brutal Japanese attacks on the island in 1941 left their own mark. If you pay close enough attention, you get the sense that something inherently sinister is hiding in the island's shadows. As told by those who experienced these things firsthand, this is the smoke pit, and these are just a few true stories that expose the darker side of Hawaii. December 7th, 1941 stands as one of the darkest days in American history. The Japanese Empire, looking to expand their control in the Pacific and seeing the U.S. Pacific Fleet as a threat to their ambitions, devised a plan. A surprise attack that would knock the Americans out of the war before they even had a chance to join it. In the first week of December, alongside coordinated strikes against U.S. and British bases in the Philippines, Guam, Wake Island, and Hong Kong, a Japanese naval task force positioned itself just a few hundred miles off the coast of Hawaii. 6 Japanese aircraft carriers and dozens of support ships transporting 353 fighters, dive, and torpedo bombers. The planes took off just before sunup on the 7th, flying toward the island of Oahu. It was a beautiful Sunday morning. Church bells were ringing, some sailors were either sleeping in or nursing their hangovers, and then the planes started flying over. Most people thought it was just part of some kind of drill. It wasn't until the explosion started that they realized this was no exercise. The Japanese attack would last for an hour and a half. In that time, the damage they caused was devastating. All 8 of the battleships moored along Ford Island were badly damaged. After being struck by 9 consecutive torpedoes, the USS Oklahoma had completely capsized, trapping hundreds of sailors and Marines inside the hull. The USS Arizona had been sunk, with 1,177 of its crew being killed when the ship exploded. For days after the attack, frantic banging of trapped men could be heard from within the wrecks. The noises themselves traumatized the men hearing them on the outside, because they could only listen, unable to cut through the thick steel bottom and rescue them. The rest of the island hadn't been spared either. Hundreds more military personnel had been killed. Every major airfield had been hit, most of the aircraft being destroyed, or severely damaged before their pilots could get them off the ground. The Americans, meanwhile, had only managed to shoot down 29 of the attacking Japanese aircraft. The American defeat was hard to stomach. 2,403 people had been killed, or would later die from starvation or suffocation inside the upturned ships. With such a massive and sudden loss of life, as with other battlegrounds, perhaps that is why, even till today, the island of Oahu, and no less Pearl Harbor, is no stranger to paranormal activity. Pearl Harbor remains an active naval base. Because of the brutal attacks in 1941, it has also become a well-known memorial site, receiving an average of 1.8 million visitors every year, and some of them experience more than they expected. Out of all the museums and historic World War II buildings on site, the USS Arizona Memorial is one that stands out. The battleship is sitting on the harbor floor, a corroded and metal husk of its former self visible just below the surface of the water. If you've seen it, maybe you have also contemplated the horrible reality that the remains of hundreds of its crew are still down there, trapped inside. Above the ship, the Navy has constructed a white concrete and steel structure which can be reached by a short ferry ride, allowing visitors to view the ship from above. In 2011, an Australian woman named Suzanne Devaney visited the Arizona Memorial along with her family. Taking in the solemn beauty of the monument, Susan began snapping photos of the interior as well as the sunken ship. Her visit to the memorial was an emotional and somewhat haunting experience by itself. But unbeknownst to her, Susan had captured something even more haunting on her camera. Looking through the photos she had taken earlier in the day, while sitting in her hotel room that evening, Susan suddenly grabbed her husband's attention. What they saw on her screen was one of the photos she had taken of the Arizona, and clearly visible in the brackish green water was a face. The distinct face of a man. It was uncanny. The face appeared young. The expression was what could only be described as a look of profound sadness and anguish. After sharing the photo with her family, it was then posted online before going viral. The photo then made headlines all over the world. As is the case with all things paranormal that are ever taken seriously by reputable media outlets, the photo received both approval and skepticism. Could the face have been one more instance of pareidolia? Of course, 1.8 million people snapping photos of the same location year after year. It's bound to happen. A ripple of water just forms in such a way, the light reflecting off of it at just the right moment. In a previous episode about strange things seen on submarines, one submariner said his sub was docked in Pearl Harbor. His chief came screaming up to their compartment, saying he'd just seen a man in an outdated naval uniform walk past him. He tried to question him, and then watched the man walk right through the hull of the ship. He may not have grabbed a photo of the man's face, but we could hardly say that his experience was pareidolia. Knowing the tragic history of the USS Arizona and the men who died banging on the hull from the inside, waiting for a rescue that would never come, the picture of the man's face in the water might as well be the most convincing proof of ghosts we will ever get, because the reality of how those men died is far more haunting to me than the idea of seeing one of their faces floating in the water 70 years later. Besides, this is hardly the only story about the island being haunted. Sergeant.
Jacobs.
What's going on?
Oh, that's right. You just checked in, didn't you?
What do you mean, Sergeant?
So, Nobody's told you yet
About what?
that this kind of thing happens all the time.
The alarm's going off?
Yeah.
Shouldn't we be going inside and...
Nope. You can head back to your post.
Aren't we supposed to clear the building? That's standard protocol, isn't it?
Look, you can go in and clear the building if you want, but you'll get tired of it after the first week. Trust me.
Sorry, Sergeant. Am I missing something?
The alarms go off every night, usually around 0300 to 0330. Don't you get it?
Get what?
Boy, you are green, aren't you? Look, you see how the guards sit in that little shack outside the front door of the building? Now, why would they want to do that instead of sitting inside at the CQ desk in the lobby?
Is there something wrong with the building?
You're damn right there's something wrong with it. Strange noises, smells, you name it.
Sergeant, are you saying that the building is haunted?
Took you that long, didn't it?
Oh, okay. I get it. Prank the new guy, right, Sergeant? Yeah, very funny.
Do I look like I'm laughing?
But...
Look, you'll figure it out eventually. Have a good night.
Yes, Sergeant. Have a good night. What the hell? This next account was shared by an Air Force veteran who was stationed at Hickam Air Force Base in the late 1990s. We don't have a name for him, so we'll call him Isaac. Hickam lies adjacent to the naval base at Pearl Harbor, and the two are considered joint bases. As a security specialist, Isaac's job largely revolved around patrolling the central headquarters building. The building itself, it seems, has a very dark history about it. This is one of two experiences that I had while stationed at Hickam Air Force Base as a security specialist on the island of Oahu, Hawaii, in the mid-90s. This incident would occur in 1997. The first day we were processed in, the other troops there started telling us new guys ghost stories. I thought they were just messing with us until I had been there for a little while. It took all of one shift to start verifying the most prevalent story told on the base. It involves the 12th Air Force Headquarters building being haunted by the war dead of Pearl Harbor. The Pacific Air Force's PACAF command is also located in this building, so it is a very important place that requires strict security. There are manned security posts on the premises, as well as state-of-the-art laser and camera systems blanketing the property. Anyway, a little historical background on the building. During the Japanese attacks on Pearl Harbor, the building was used as a hospital and temporary morgue. Over 1,000 dead servicemen were stored there until their remains could be dealt with properly. Many of them would die in the building while being treated. There was so much blood that the cleanup apparently required stringing hoses throughout the building and washing the floors with scrub brushes. Pretty gruesome. And for sure sets a good stage for some paranormal happenings. Well, the first night on shift, around 3 a.m., the motion alarms went nuts, and the SRT, Special Response Team, was called to respond. I was training with the base patrol that night, so we went that way and provided backup. Every guy there seemed more tense than they should be. Something strange then happened to me. Instead of the SRT going in the building and clearing it, they simply reset the alarm and documented the occurrence. Anyone who knows anything about military security knows this is extremely unusual and not protocol. When we returned to our patrol, I asked my FTO, my field training officer, why didn't we secure the building like we should have? This is what he told me. It happens every night, usually between 3 and 3:30. He also let me in on why there was a little shack outside the front door of the building instead of the guard being posted at the CQ desk in the lobby of HQ. Almost every airman that tried to work the post would refuse to stay in there because they would hear walking and talking, smell what was described as rotten meat or a slaughterhouse smell, and the stairs in front of that location would squeak and vibrate violently on a regular basis. I was still thinking that this was them messing with me. It just seemed like it was a little too scripted. But, man, was I wrong. For the next 6 months I was there, this alarm thing would occur each and every night between 3 and 3:30, just like my sergeant warned me. I saw military dogs refuse to go into search. Every dog would whimper, growl, and try to hide behind their handler. Those of you who know that military working dogs don't refuse service. I also witnessed grown men choose to sit on a stool in a 4x4 foot shack instead of at a nice desk in a spacious air-conditioned lobby, night after night. I quickly became one of those guys in the shack too, because I experienced the walking, talking, and stares in about the first hour of my shift on that post. I tried sitting at the desk, and I didn't stay there long. Because my shift on the HQ post began at midnight, and by 0100 or so, my time of trying to stay at the CQ desk was over. I was pretty shaken. I never experienced the smells, but would experience the sounds on several occasions. Then at 3:17 a.m., the alarm went off. There was motion detected in the basement and on the 3rd floor. There had been nobody there since 5 p.m. when the building had been secured for the evening. Peculiar thing, very seldom did anyone come back in the evening to work there, alone. I think I remember only about 2 times in my 6 months that anyone came back to work after 5 p.m. And if they did, they didn't stay long, in and out, so to speak. It was creepy, and I experienced these things on several occasions, but the alarm thing was every morning, without fail. These are my experiences at the HQ building on Hickam Air Force Base. It was an extremely unnerving place to work. The sheer death toll during the attacks on Pearl Harbor in 1941 are horrifying enough. Hundreds of recovered bodies would have needed a large amount of indoor space to hold them, and the process of identifying them and preparing them for burial must have taken an incredible effort. The dead would have been carried and stored in the buildings closest to the harbor, where the ships were destroyed. As with this airman's account, there does seem to be a common trend around Pearl Harbor installations that buildings or spaces used to house the bodies of the dead are now known to be very unnerving to spend time in. One Navy veteran, using the handle Rare Notice 7417, shared a similarly chilling account about his own building, which is now a commissary on Hickam and is only a short distance from the headquarters building previously mentioned.
My unit's building was supposedly haunted. In the aftermath of the Pearl Harbor attacks, the building was a commissary, a grocery store, and they kept bodies in the freezers. Those freezers ended up becoming storage for our cleaning supplies decades later. And it was weird going in there or staying the night on duty.
Another sailor with the handle Combat Wombat 23 shared something similar in a comment about the Naval Information Operations Quarterdeck building, which is another short distance from the HQ building and lies adjacent to the harbor.
I don't know if it is still the case, but the quarterdeck for NIOC Hawaii is haunted. Whole building was used as a morgue during Pearl Harbor. I had an overnight watch, and it's a skiff, a sensitive compartmented information facility, so it's got big heavy doors and stuff. I was the only person in the secure area that night. Most of the lights were off, and I swear to God, the same door kept opening every time I walked through. And then there was the gym in the tiny-ass basement with low ceilings. Something was not right down there.
Pearl Harbor and Hickam are on the west side of the island.